So we have our navigation items in a series, and one thing that you might notice is if you started to try to code these, well, we don't actually have anything to code with, right? In fact, if I go back into our folder, we have no, .swift files connected to these different view controllers. This can be a slightly complex process, so let's go through it briefly, how to add independent view controllers to each one of these, or independent view controller files to each one of these. So I'm going to go File, New, and say New File, or Command N. And I'm going to pick, I could pick Cocoa Touch class or Swift file. I'm just going to pick a Cocoa Touch class. I'll hit Next, and I'll call it something like, let's say, First View Controller. I'll make sure it says UI View Controller, and I'll make sure it's a Swift language. So we want it to be a subclass of UI View Controller, meaning it's inheriting a bunch of properties from UI View Controller. Now let's click Next. It's going to ask me where to save it. Just save it in the default folder. Make sure that looks okay. And we should see it appear in our screen, and we have the first view controller.swift over here. Let's go back to our main.storyboard, and let's make a few more of these files. So I'll go File, New, File, do the same thing, another Cocoa Touch class. We'll call it second, and now let's also create the third. All right, so now we have our three view controller.swift files, and we have our three view controllers. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually add these files to these individual view controllers. So the best way to do that is to select a view controller, and once it's selected, so I just click the top bar, or I could click the name of it over here, I can go up to the Identity Inspector, and in the Identity Inspector I can change the class. And if I click this button, I should be able to scroll through and find the classes that I made. So the one I want to connect this first one to is called First View Controller, which is right here. And I click it, and now it's selected. Let's select that second one and do the same thing. So I want to connect this to Second View Controller, and the third one, and do the same. And remember, I'm here in the Identity Inspector. All right, so now each one of these is tied to each file, and they operate just like how our standard viewcontroller.swift file does, where whenever we open up this view, whenever we go to this view, it loads that file executes, and whenever we get out of that view, that file unloads. So if we went back, we would actually lose the information in that file. That's fine, we're not working with persistence yet, and we actually won't really be getting to that in this class, but you can at least use these to organize your content. If you only had one view controller file, it might be quite difficult to deal with all the complexities of managing 10 view controllers, and additionally, once you start adding in specific classes and specific things, you can really break your project quite easily. So it's good to have several Swift files, one Swift file per view controller, or even multiple Swift files per view controller tied to it.